The regular hybrid meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, April 19th, 2021. It's 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst.
Here.
Commissioner Engel.
Here.
Commissioner Rollins.
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Here.
And Commissioner Wright.
Here.
Thank you, Joanne. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, let's proceed to public requests. Brianne, do we have any emails?
We do not have any emails tonight.
Okay, Melissa, are there any hands up?
Not yet. Here we go. Yes.
Okay,
Phone number ending in 3460.
Hi, everybody. This is Rick Hurd, 285 Northeast Spanish Court. Hope all is well tonight. Happy to be part of the meeting. I'd like to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to have provided a proposal for you. And I had the chance to look over all of them, and there's so many great ideas from the residents. I don't envy the task that you have in front of you of choosing, but I think what we all really want is for the commissioners to choose a vision, communicate that vision, get some buy-in, whatever you need, and take action. That's what we really need. So again, I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to hopefully helping the district move forward, whichever direction they decide to go. Thank you.
thank you, Rick.
I'm not seeing any other hands at this moment.
Let's wait a second because it takes sometimes it's a little complicated.
Okay, here we go. Mr. Holloway. Go ahead, Mr. Holloway.
Nope. Thank you. So my name is John Holloway, and I'm the executive director of Gumbo Limbo Nature Center Incorporated, and we do business as Friends of Gumbo Limbo at 1801 North Ocean Boulevard. As you are aware, we're an independent 501c3 dedicated to the mission of inspiring people to support stewardship and research of coastal and marine ecosystems, sponsoring sea turtle conservation, and advocating for the enhancement of the Gumbo Limbo Nature Center. Our organization provides approximately $300,000 in operational support to the Nature Center annually. We are actively involved in bringing back the tower and supporting significant upgrades to the tanks associated with the sea turtle rehab and their relocation to access full sunlight at the center. On March 15th, 2021, Executive Director Harms suggested that Friends could provide funding to make up the shortfall in the budget to actual costs for the seawater pumps and piping project for the Gumbo Limbo Nature Center. Friends' involvement with this project was also a matter of conversation amongst the commissioners at the April 5th meeting. Many times over the last several weeks, there has been considerable public commentary about the outdated Red Reef Agreement and the need and intention to revisit the particulars of the agreement when it comes to the Gumbo Limbo Nature Center. There have also been statements made about the appropriateness of Friends providing funding beyond our annual financial dedication to the center. Our board met on March 15th and considered that request, and I'm very proud of the notable expressions of support that donors, members, and citizens have shared for this project's critical and immediate need. The Friends of Gumbo Limbo believe this is a matter of life and death for the fish and the cherished exhibits than the world-renowned work that we're doing with the endangered sea turtles. The gravity of the situation has compelled Friends to offer the memo of understanding with the district to cover the $144,000 shortfall in the project's budget. Despite the center being closed to the public for over a year now, and our access to donations from visitors and retail store commerce being eliminated during this time, Friends has been stalwart, providing approximately $300,000 to the day-to-day operations and projects that are ongoing. Because Friends has long been dedicated to partnering for the enhancement of Gumbo Limbo and the educational and conservation efforts, we make this commitment in hopes that it will enable the project to continue. I hope that all of this makes sense and that the district and the commissioners see Friends as an ally in bringing this project to life and an indication of our hopes for future collaboration. Thanks for your time and continued support of the environmental complex at Red Reef Park and the treasured community asset that is Gumbo Limbo Nature Center.
Thank you, John. We will be discussing your generosity. Melissa, do we have somebody else?
Mr. Verstandig?
Hi, Bruce Dilla Verstandig, 140 Southeast Fifth Avenue, Boca Raton, Florida, 33432. Please savor this moment because I'd like to compliment the board and really express my gratitude for you guys holding your ground as far as the pumping and pipes district goes. And a special thank you to the executive director, Ms. Harms, who presented a fabulous presentation at the City Council workshop meeting. I think there's a lot to be learned from the City Council meeting where they were discussing their own parks and coming up short of money. I think it shows how important it is that the Beach and Parks District hold on to every penny they have to really develop their own parks, to build their parks, because if the city is running into problems building Wildflower, then that tells you everything. So I think Ms. Harms did a fabulous job, and above and beyond, I think that you guys held your ground. It's interesting that until the year 2000, or I think 1999, the school district paid for Gumbo Limbo. This was while this agreement started in 1984 to 1999. The school district paid for Gumbo Limbo. You guys took it over. I'm not quite sure, and I go back to this as far as the legality of funding a nonprofit, but that's a separate issue. But I want to say thank you to the board and thank you to the executive director for holding your ground, for saving every penny, because you're going to need it as far as building Ocean Strand and Ocean Breeze and all other parks you have in development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Verstandig.
We have somebody registered as iPad user.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Please give us your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Harold Chaffee. I live at 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue in Boca Raton, Florida, the president of Keep Golf in Boca. I wanted to commend you for doing a fantastic job as far as the survey and getting all the results. A lot of people basically sent in their comments, and I'm glad that you're very transparent and told everybody exactly the way it was. Nothing hidden, no secrets. This is the way that people wanted it. I wanted to talk a little bit about the pumping station. I don't know that much about it, but I know that there's something really missing, and it's called the generator. I see things missing that basically that if they aren't there, the pumps are totally useless. If you ever lost power, I don't know what you would do over there. I mean, and the other thing too is I don't know why they're putting it on the most dangerous part. You're moving it across the street on the ocean side, which is the most vulnerable place that you could ever be if there was a tidal surge. So I have a couple of comments about it, but I just want to comment you on doing a great job, and that it's up to you now to move forward with this and then hold, get a group together or get meetings together and then proceed and start moving. If we would have had no objection from the city, we would have a golf course right now and you would be heroes. It'd be a tremendous success at this time right now. You talk about timing, it was just perfect. But what are you going to do? Sour grapes. But we got to move forward. All right. And thank you very much for everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chaffee.
Mr. Galanis.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Greg Galanis, 1780 Parkside Circle, South Boca Raton. Thank you for your continued efforts. Had an interesting thing pop up on my calendar last week that really made me step back from the situation. 3 years ago, last week, we awarded the contract to Price Fazio to build us a new golf course. Think about that, 3 years ago. So that said, in about 4 months, Boca Municipal Golf Course is closing. We're fortunate to have been gifted Boca Country Club, which I played today. I actually brought my whole league over there to play. And it's a wonderful, very challenging golf course. And I would submit that the vast majority of average golfers might not be able to play the course. It's that difficult. In addition to that, the executive course is closing, to which 22,000 rounds a year are played on the executive course, where people no longer are going to have a place to play. I was happy to see the results of the survey on the RFI, that overwhelmingly golf was at the top of the list. And to Rick Hurd's point, I strongly request that you guys move forward, take action, and do the right thing. I know we spent a lot of time talking about getting the city involved, and I think they should be involved with the whole golf complex situation, but for the benefit of residents and golfers alike, we have the opportunity to do something great for the city. And I implore you guys to move forward thoughtfully with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
See more hands. No more hands.
We're good? Okay. Public requests are now closed. It's time for the approval of the minutes of the regular hybrid meeting of April 5th, 2021, found on page 3 of your agenda packet. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Joanne. We are coming up to the first item of regular business, the Ocean Breeze discussion, the RFI results. Brianne, would you lead us off?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm echoing, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm going to mute.
Okay.
Would everybody mute?
Okay. You can still hear me, right? It got really quiet. For the RFI, we did get a number of results back, and the top 5 results are in your agenda packets. Page 8, golf and walking, running, cycling trails were the top 2 things that people had submitted an interest in having on the Boca Chica property. There's certainly a lot to digest in these results. We'll hear more next week at the joint meeting about the needs assessment. And also, obviously, there's a lot going on with the country club, phase 2 of the Hornley, and things to consider should the city move forward with the downtown, that downtown campus plan, and how that could impact those recreational amenities. So there's a lot to go through. Certainly a lot of interest in the Boca Chica property with golf and walking trails. So I will listen to you guys' discussion and see how you want to proceed with it.
Thank you, Brianne. Commissioners, Mr. Engel, would you like to lead off?
Why not? I think the first thing we have to take into consideration right now is that whatever we do, we have to understand that the city still has a final say on the west side of the golf course. And we also have to take into account that we make sure that whatever we do, we don't jeopardize the bond status of the status of the bonds that were issued. That could cause us some problems down the road. I was very gratified to see both the quantity and the quality of the responses. There was a lot of thought put into this, and we have our work cut out for us. As for myself, as far as my preference, I think these are all great ideas, and we just have to figure out a way to mold them together and take into account all the conditions that we have to face in the circumstances. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Craig, would you like to go next?
Sure. First of all, I guess the top 6 or 5 items there's enough space there to do all those things. So that's a good thing. But beyond just what Steve said, the west side or the east side, I think we really do have to have significant input with our colleagues at the city. I do not want to jeopardize anything that they have going on at the new location they have for golf. But I think we can complement it. So there's plenty of room there. But what I do kind of envision is after we get through some of this discussion, I think we can look across the community and look at some of the lessons we've learned on things. Is number one, both the district and the city have to be on board with whatever that vision is and defining it. And number two, it would probably help us to have a deeper community involvement. And I look back at the lessons learned with the wildflower. And I'll specifically call out some of our community volunteers are the best volunteers. They're the ones who defined what we have for sugar sand. They've defined the history of Boca is always done with the volunteer group. So my thought would be is let's have that discussion with the city coming up, but then out of that, maybe form a independent group of community volunteers. And I say that because there is a vision from a third party to do the design of the wildflower that was just, crazy, not what everyone wanted. But then when you got the community volunteers, Margaret Fitzsimmons specifically, she really took a lead of carving things out, bouncing things back, getting volunteers out there to shape the ideas of what that is. I think we need to listen more to the community, what they want, and maybe we can help it all develop it together rather than just making a decision and saying, this is it. I think we need to continue that input. All those top 6 items, 100% for some way, somehow, makes a lot of sense. And I think there's good things to come, but I really would like the city involved in it. And I do not want to jeopardize anything related to the golf course, which Boca Country Club, because I think it's going to take some effort to really get that up and running correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rollins. You're on mute, Bob.
There, can you hear me now? All right. I think we've had some reasonably good comments put forth. Unlike Craig, I'm not sure that I'm favoring all 6 of these items. I do know that golf is at the top of the list for me, and certainly we have the space to accommodate these other programs. But I think that we have to envision the fact that we have a clean palette now with phase 2 at Spanish River, the Boca Country Club, and I don't know how the needs assessment compares to these top 6 items that we do have. So I'm quite interested in seeing that. Brianne, have we gotten that needs assessment yet?
Only the draft that you guys saw. It's been a couple months since you've seen any revised version. It's going to be presented at the joint meeting.
So we're not going to have a chance to see that before the joint meeting?
I'll send it out again. It's the same information that you've had, but I'll send it out.
Okay. Because I think there's a way we can accommodate the public's interest in recreational amenities if we are careful about where we put these items. Pickleball may be appropriate over at Boca Country Club. The indoor tennis facility might be appropriate over on the south part of the east side of Ocean Breeze. I think I'm excited about the possibilities of building out our recreational needs, because I believe this is the last few parcels of vacant land where we have a clean palette that we can work with. And I think we need to be prudent with it. I think we need to recognize the demand for this I asked Brianne for information on the disc golf to try to gauge where this input was coming from. And I know that we've had pickleball court, pickleball players, lacrosse players come to us and emphasize the fact that they needed additional space, and we met those needs and are continuing to do just that with pickleball. I think we'll probably see a bigger footprint for them in the community. So I think we just have to be really diligent and good stewards of the space that we have. If we can use volunteers, as Craig suggested, I'd certainly be appreciative of that. But I want to have a good sense of the need for some of these projects that are on here, rather than just someone, getting grouped together and sending out form letters and making it in the top 6. But I think if we can have a consensus with the city about their thoughts about where they would put some of these items. Phase 2 is a clean palette over at DeHornley. And I think we need to be very careful about the design, the plans, and where we put these options so that they work the best. The thing that I've really noticed, the path around the lake over at DeHornley is heavily used, and I think that's a wonderful component to that park. And we may need more of those, and Ocean Breeze might be an ideal place for it. So I'm excited about the possibilities. Sorry to run off with all this, but I think it's important that we do it with the city and have a common vision for the final several spaces that we'll be developing.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Commissioner Wright.
Yes, I'm going to be shorter. I'm not feeling so hot tonight. So, but I echo kind of what everybody said. Is I think the first step was kind of gathering some of the information from the public. Our next step obviously is to meet with the city and just get some more input on what their plans are for their facility at Boca Country Club, phase 2, the complex downtown, and like timelines for some of those as well would be helpful, so that we can kind of go from there and then use that needs assessment. And then it would be great if we could get some volunteers to do kind of like a consulting, bringing together of ideas versus bringing somebody who doesn't know our community in as well as like the volunteers do. So I think that would be a good idea if that was something that can actually happen. And so, but yeah, so the next step would definitely be, we have to have that conversation with the city to see kind of where they stand and how we can work better together on this versus what happened the first time around. So.
Thank you. I hope you feel better.
Thanks.
I totally agree that we do need to have this meeting on Monday with the city and see where they're going with all of their different projects. I'm very excited about the possibility of golf on the east side. We have the design. We wouldn't have to put any more design money into it per se. And we could do a lot of good things over there. The volunteers and the community coming together and helping us I think this has been a clearer path even than the needs assessment. It was what people really want, and they were able to communicate with us, and I appreciate every single one of them that came in. So we will be, for the public's information, we will be meeting on Monday virtually with the city, and we will ask them where they're going with their projects and see if they will be on board with us doing the executive course, the learning center, and the driving range on our east property. And I'm just keeping my fingers crossed, and I'm thinking positively. So with that, let's move on to our item number 2, which is the pipes and pumping MOU with Gumbo Limbo. And I want to thank the Friends of Gumbo Limbo for their generosity and working with Executive Director Harms, who worked very hard on this project, as well as Jacob Horowitz, our district counsel, who worked on this as well. Brianne?
Commissioners, this MOU on page 10 is between, memorializes an agreement between the district and the Gumbo Limbo Inc., who is willing now to provide the needed $144,246 that would move the pipes and pumping project forward with the city. I also want to thank John Holloway for working with his board last week, as well as our legal counsel, Jacob Horowitz, because he was readily available Thursday and Friday as we worked back and forth to get this to this point. This is the amount needed to at least move the pipes and pumping project forward so that they could award the bid and award the contract and start the work.
Commissioner Engel, do you have any questions for Brianne or for Mr. Horowitz?
No, I think.
You're on mute.
I'll get this figured out eventually, probably about the time we go to in-person meetings. I think the MOU is pretty self-explanatory. And I want to thank Mr. Holloway for his help in getting this agreement put together, as well as the board of the Friends of Gumbo Limbo. I think now all that we have left to do is to get the contract awarded and to move forward and deal with whatever comes after that as it comes.
Mr. Rollins?
Well, I agree with Steve. I think Brianne was a motivating person to diligently negotiate with the Friends for this support. And I think it was good that we can collaborate with them on getting this project up and running. It's been going on for way too long, and I'm delighted that we're moving forward with it.
Commissioner Wright?
Same goes for me. I'm just happy that it's going forward at this point, and that the city can go ahead and get it going, and then we'll figure out I guess the issues with the change order funding at a later date. If there are any, who knows? There might not be any, right? Fingers crossed.
Commissioner Ernst?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think it's wonderful that the Friends contributed. I also watched the city council meeting. I appreciate what our colleagues said at the city, and what's clear from the agreement is, and with the discussion of the city, it is our obligation for operations and maintenance. It's our obligation for capital. And there's been, the Gumbo Limbo site is the result of many, many volunteers for many years. And we don't want to take away from what the volunteers have done and brought to it. I went back and read another document that Brianne provided from a study that was done. And in that study, I think, was it called, Brianne, what's it called?
ANCA.
ANCA, the ANCA study. Mr. Miller was involved with it. I think a lot of people are familiar with it, but there's some things in there that are good. And it talks about things that you balance of leadership and balance of who's doing things. And this is the first step in the process. We'll get the pumps and piping project implemented. And I think our colleagues at the city should understand that if there is an overrun, we're here, we're gonna do our part to fulfill it, as well as the Friends. We're just gonna follow our normal process, which is change orders. But I do think there is the opportunity, and we should, as a collective group, someone has to get an agreement, update the agreement with the Friends. What is their role? What are they contributing to the projects? And I want them involved in these projects because they should have some skin in the game on them. And number two, they're on site doing these different things, whether it's an agreement with the district or with the city. I think it's important that there is a documented relationship between them. And finally, our 1984 agreement is pretty darn old. And maybe it suffices to have everything what we have in there, but it was done when there was nothing out there. So it's probably time to look at that and look for partners like FAU. If they're using the site, they should be contributing. And remember, our role here is to cover the actual costs of things. So, and I have no problem with fulfilling that mission of of covering the actual costs of things. So I have one question though that I would like to, and I know it's a little bit on the fly with Jennifer Bastiga. I see she's on the line. And that is, I would like to address Mr. Chaffee's comment about you're putting pumps on the ocean side. Is that really a good idea? Because this is your one time. I just want to know, there must have been some thought logic to take those pumps and take them from one side of A1A and put them on the other side of A1A. And I think that question, when this whole, if we have ocean sea levels rising and warming of everything, that's probably not the best spot to put them, but I'd like to know what they're going to do to mitigate if there is a, a sea surge, king tides, the whole 9 yards. What, and maybe someone could unmute Jennifer and she could address what the thought logic was there and if they're still comfortable with it.
Melissa, is Jennifer on the call?
Good evening, everybody. This is Jennifer Bastiga, the city's coastal program manager. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. And I have no problem answering those questions. When there's very good logic behind what we're doing. First off, when you look at the Red Reef Park area, the beach area, we have a nice beach, and then we have a very large dune system that goes behind that beachfront park. And then we go into the parking lot itself. Near that parking lot area at the northern end of Red Reef is where that pump station is going to be. So you have a beach and then you have the dune protecting it. The logic why we're putting it on the east side of A1A versus the west side is really due to the micro bubbles. When you're pulling, as we're currently in our system is pulling from Gumbo Limbo, pulling from the ocean water all the way across underneath A1A, going to Gumbo Limbo. That creates micro bubbles, that creates concerns and we lose our pressure as it's going across. Think about it as pulling, sucking on a milkshake, like a milkshake that you have. When you're sucking up that milkshake, it's very hard when you first get it, it's very thick. If you took that same straw and then pushed the milkshake out, everything would go flying out very quickly. That's the same concept. So being on the east side of A1A, we are pushing the water to Gumbo Limbo. So it has a lot more pressure, a lot more power versus pulling where you lose a lot as you're pulling across A1A. So we did do studies. We looked at the different levels. It causes cavitation right now when we're pulling across A1A, and then we're getting our micro bubbles. So the best way to eliminate all of this is be able to push the water versus basically sucking at 1,000 feet. So that was the logic behind this. We take into effect sea level rise, storm surge, and the location that we picked, we feel is the best location for this project.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
We have an incredible facilities manager. Would it be possible to have Melissa on site periodically so that she could report back to us about the progress and what's going on the project?
Absolutely. We're going to have construction inspectors from the city, our consultant, and Melissa can be involved as a construction inspector, obviously following the proper protocols that are put in place by the contractor themselves with all the appropriate safety gear. But, you know, we'll probably be having weekly meetings that she can be involved in as well. Absolutely.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for Jennifer? Thank you for being on the call.
Absolutely. And I would just like to touch on contingency. I understand the board's probably going forward tonight without contingency, but that if there are any unforeseen conditions that does cost an increase, even a minor one, the project will have to stop until a change order is approved by the board. And so depending on the time of an unforeseen error, that may be up to a week to 2 week delay until the next board meeting. So I just wanted to bring that up as a consideration as we go forward with this project.
Thank you. Commissioners, do I hear a motion to approve the MOU with the Friends of Gumbo Limbo Inc.?
So moved.
You're on mute.
Yes. Beat him to it.
So moved.
I think Craig beat you to it while you were on mute.
Second.
So, okay, you can second it. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Joanne, would you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Good, thank you. Item number 3 is the Senate and the House bill update. Brianne, would you start off, and then I guess you'll hand it off to Mr. Horowitz?
I will. We discussed last week, or not last week, at our last meeting. There's a couple of bills right now in the state legislature that are making their way that will impact special districts if they should get passed. So with that, I will let Jacob take it over and explain where they're at in the process and what we can expect moving forward.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. At the last meeting, as Brianne said, we offered just a brief update of several pending bills that will have some impact on our district. A couple wanted to give you a brief follow-up update on Senate Bill 402, which pertains specifically to legal notices, provides for certain revisions to state law as it relates to the notice publication requirements in newspapers. If it were to be adopted, then there would no longer be a specific requirement for us to publish our notices and our annual meeting schedule in newspapers. It does substitute that publication requirement with additional publication on the district's website. So it just reallocates some of the notice provisions under state law for special districts as well as cities and municipalities. The other bill, which is more district specific, is Senate Bill 1624, which has a House companion bill as well. This bill pertains specifically to district accountability and requires certain independent special districts to contract with independent entities to conduct performance audits. It requires the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Governmental Accountability to conduct performance audits of certain special districts. It also has additional requirements for performance audits that are reported annually and requires that certain data be added to our performance audits. If the bill were to pass, we'd certainly work with our auditing firm to ensure that we were in compliance with the new law should it take effect. Both Senate Bill 402 and Senate Bill 1624 were set to be heard today by the Appropriations Committee. We have checked the committee's website and the Senate's website to try to get an update from the action that was taken today. Unfortunately, neither of them have been updated. So we don't know what action occurred today in the committee, but we're monitoring and will continue to monitor both bills, and we'll keep the board apprised to the extent that they're adopted or they move forward through the legislative process, and let you know of any impact should they be ultimately signed by the governor. That's what I have this evening, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Horowitz or for, okay, Mr. Engel?
Well, first of all, thank you, Counselor, for following up on these bills. With regard to 1624 and 402, the Senate, well, the legislative session ends, I believe, on Friday. What are the chances that these bills get out of committee, get through the Senate and onto the governor's desk before it closes?
They were heard by the committee today, so it's certainly possible that they were approved by the committee and moved them to the Senate floor, at least in the case of 1624 and its companion bill, which is House Bill 1103, which provides similar provisions. If that were to happen in the next couple of days, it's certainly possible. I know they do have some traction in Tallahassee. Whether they would be approved by the full legislature by the end of the week and transmitted to the governor remains to be seen. But if there's any action between now and our next meeting, we'll certainly advise the board of that in the interim as well.
Okay. If for whatever reason these bills don't make it to the governor's desk before the end of the session, what would happen then?
The bills would essentially either die in committee or die on the floor of the House or the Senate, and they would need to be refiled at a later session.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I do, Madam
Okay,
Chair. What's the date that this officially would take place should these two bills pass? And in reading it, it said we have to, I think the note said that we would have to do this every 5 years. Is that correct?
I believe for the accountability bill, it does provide, well, we're required to go out to bid for an auditor every 5 years, and the additional accountability requirements are incorporated into our annual report. So the auditing process is separate and apart, and that's a discussion that's coming up at a future meeting when we go out to look for a new auditing firm. With regards to the additional information, that's included in our annual report. So if the bill were to be adopted, then the additional information required by the bill would have to be included annually when our audit is published every year.
So are you saying this is an annual report that would have to make on?
Yes.
Well, here's the issue that I'm getting to is that the bill sponsors says the special district's goals and objective for each program and activity. This is what they're looking for, the problem or need that the program or activity was designed to address and the expected benefits of each program. And then it goes on to say that the delivery of services by the special district, including alternative methods of providing those services that would reduce cost and improve performance. So this is a performance audit, as I understand it. Is that right, Jake?
Well, but there are two components to the bills. House Bill 1103 and Senate Bill 1624 have two subparts. A portion of the bill deals with performance reviews, and those portions do not apply to the district. The performance review part applies to 4 specific types of districts: hospital districts, water and soil conservation districts, mosquito control districts, and fire prevention districts. The additional reporting requirements, which would apply to all districts established under Chapter 189 and would apply to us, adds additional information that's required to be included in our annual report, but it's not all performance-based information.
So it's just the inclusion of this information in our annual report. Are we going to have to hire an independent person to do this service other than just our financial audit?
I believe the information that be requested could be compiled by our current auditor. If we were one of those other 4 enumerated districts, it does require an independent entity to perform the specific performance review. But again, that does not apply specifically to the district, to our district.
Okay. Jake, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ernst or Commissioner Wright, do you have any questions for Mr. Horowitz?
No, I do not.
Okay, good. Okay, well, we'll see what happens this week with these bills. I did have a request out to County Commissioner Maria Sachs because I wasn't getting any information back from anybody in Tallahassee. I did try to contact them. So I want to publicly thank Maria Sachs for helping me navigate through some of this. Our next item is the approval of payroll and invoices, and I'd like to have a motion from our treasurer.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval of payroll and invoices for the amount of $35,418.40.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're up to our reports and discussion items with our Executive Director, Breanne Harms.
Commissioners, just a few updates. The first for our Boca Chica community, I know they'll be excited to know CSR was given the notice to proceed and they are mobilizing this week. They should start next week. I believe Commissioner Ernst mentioned to me, we've been talking a lot about the improvements over there and making it an effort to get the entrance cleaned up. So I think we'd like to start on the east entranceway, if everybody else is good with that, and get that cleaned up, get the irrigation going. And then they'll also work on demolition and then following their timeline to get the area cleaned up, get all the construction fencing out of there, trees pruned, and really clean it up and make it look a lot better than it's looking right now. And I think the Boca Chica community will be happy with the changes. Our pool deck resurfacing will begin on May 10th. Permit holders will at the Swim and Racket Center will be able to go to Meadows Pool. We do a lot of reciprocation. Meadows Pool was recently closed while they resurfaced their pool, and those permit holders were able to come to the Swim and Racket Center. So they will be entertaining our Swim and Racket Center permit holders for 3 to 4 weeks while that work is completed there, starting on May 10th. Our audit is wrapping up. I had my interview with Grau, and I believe our treasurer completed his interview as well. So we'll be moving forward and hopefully have that out shortly. You also all got a meeting about the joint meeting and the technical setup. So if there's any conflicts on Friday for anybody, you can email the city or email me, and we'll work on another time frame for you to set up your time to do a technical run through of that. And that is it for my updates.
I have a question for you. I had an inquiry from someone. They said that they have not seen any notice given for the joint meeting on the 26th.
The city is going to post they usually post their agenda for it. We have the agenda, it's the needs assessment, and then I think the RFI discussions on Boca Chica is part of that.
And Mr. Engel also wanted some discussion about Gumbo Limbo.
It didn't make the agenda, but it's certainly something that come up at the workshop. They talked about the agenda itself and like to limit it to just a couple of items. I did mention that because it was one of the things that also, I'm sorry, Gumbo Limbo was on there. What's not on there is, Gumbo Limbo is an item on the agenda. I apologize. What's not on there is pickleball came up at the workshop and from the city side, but they didn't have it on the agenda when they were talking about it this morning. So I don't know if it'll be one of the discussions, but it certainly will probably come up in the talk about the needs assessment and the RFI on Boca Chica. So yes,
Okay.
Gumbo Limbo was on the agenda, excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ernst, you have a question?
Yeah, just a couple things. Going back to the executive director's comments on the east side of Yamato entrance, there's the east and the west. And I understand, is it correct, Brianne, we have not received any feedback to do any work on the west side of that entrance.
Correct.
And so we are not doing anything on the west side from that because we haven't gotten anything from them. They're non-receptive to anything. Is that correct?
Correct. We'll just keep maintaining it like we are per the lease agreement, but the improvements that we'll be doing will be on the east side that we own.
And I just want to share with the group that last week, when I think we were all very interested in getting the pumps and piping project moving forward, and I did have the opportunity to talk to a few of the city council members, and the comment was about, maybe we should get going on the east side. And I think there's good reason to do that because, we do have that outright and we can make that look nice. And unfortunate for the west side, if they don't want to enter any agreement or anything, we'll make the east side, we'll start with cleaning it up, getting the irrigation going and doing the proper investment, and it will be good. I'd like to preserve the coral that's there because it is very original to the area, but look forward to it really looking much better than it is, but it's going to look a little odd with the east side looking good and the west side looking bad. So hopefully whoever is on the west side and the homeowners there can come to an agreement that will work. Switching gears to the pool resurfacing and shifting people over. One of the swimmers over at Swim and Racket pointed out to me they're constrained by the time that they can swim at Swim and Racket. Are there any changes to the rules so they can swim beyond 45 minutes as a number of people have become vaccinated? And is there anything that we can do to go back to normal hours at Swim and Racket for swimming?
I'll follow up with the city staff and see where they're at with any changes.
Okay.
Can you just send an email, Brianne, about that you talked to? Didn't Michael just confirm that they're kind of in a holding pattern still?
Well, for opening new facilities, but as far as the hours at Swim and Racket, Swim and Racket Center is open, so I'll talk to them about adjusting those times.
Okay.
It's open. And then the last thing related, we didn't really address, and I apologize, I didn't mention it in the Gumbo Limbo pumps and piping. I think there was an interest in the contingency fund. And I think our answer to address it is what our normal process is to do it through change order. But just so there is comfort from everyone, I'd like to make the recommendation that we handle the contingency in our next budgeting, because by then the project will be off the ground and we'll at least have it in our budget for the next, we start putting our budget together in the June timeframe, and we can put that. By then, I think their project will be going. They'll have a little bit better idea, and we'll know better if how much is needed for a contingency. But put it into our budget for the beginning in the October cycle for next year, so it's there. And then everyone should feel comfortable that there's sufficient funds reserved for the pump and piping project. That's would be my recommendation, just as a discussion. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Brianne, were you finished with all of your reports?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
In addition to the legislative update, just wanted to remind the board that the governor's emergency order is set to expire on Monday, the 26th, I believe it is, which is the date of our joint meeting. To the extent that the governor extends that order or takes any other action with regards to the state of emergency, we'll certainly update the board as needed.
We did discuss prior to the meeting tonight that we'll continue to have the joint meeting like we're doing now with 2 virtual and 3 in person. And of course, the city is, has their protocols too, but we would need to go by the mandates of the governor. Okay, commissioners' reports. Let's start with Mr. Engel.
I'm the leadoff hitter tonight. Okay, I want to touch on something that Commissioner Ernst mentioned with regard to contingency. Brianne, based on what we know now, could you give us an idea of roughly when work will start?
The city council will have to approve this still, so I really couldn't guesstimate on a time frame. I think they have to get it on the council agenda. They'll have to approve it. I know the contractor was waiting 2 weeks, but and then they have to give the notice to proceed. So I don't know when work would actually start.
Would it be safe to assume that it would start within the next 90 days?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Okay, so.
That sounds like a safe bet.
All right, so we're in April, May, June, July. So if we put contingency money into the 21-22 budget, that means, would that mean that we can't fund any contingency should we have to? That we can't fund any contingency until that budget goes into effect?
No, I think Commissioner Ernst was thinking that the project may carry over into the next budget season, and that would make it, I think, just a budget for next year. We just started getting the city invoices. We got our first one back. I anticipate there being extra money than what was budgeted because they haven't spent it all, so we can look at all that. I think there's a lot of opportunity to look at other things like the revenue from the Red Reef West parking lot. There's a lot of things to look at as far as how to fund the project should they need contingency money, if they need it this fiscal year. If it doesn't get done this fiscal year, then certainly can look at it at the next budget cycle.
Yeah. My concern is that, it's one thing to have the project stop waiting for approval of contingency funding if it stops for a week or two, but it's a whole other matter if we have to stop it for a month or two, which is, it's a very valid point that that Commissioner Ernst brought up, and something we should be cognizant of. If this is just to make sure that we have money, should the project carry over into the next fiscal year, then, that's great. I just want to make sure that it doesn't have any effect on the project in this fiscal year.
What will happen if it happens this fiscal year, the city would come to us with a change order. We would obviously put it on the first available agenda. I would look at our budget, talk to Mervyn, see where we could, if the board wanted to do something like that, we would have to talk about it and see what projects would be impacted by making those changes.
Okay. Other than that, I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Wright?
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ernst?
Nothing to report, thank you.
No more, okay. And Mr. Rollins?
Just a quick suggestion. It was mentioned about the changing the hours at the swim and racket. As we're starting to see more and more facilities open to the public, I'd like to continue to stay with the city and remind them that the school board has published a list of summer camps that they're having, which include field houses, which would include, I think Boca Hoops conducts their summer sessions at Olympic Heights. I don't want to be the last one to reopen. While I do want to do it safely, I do want to make sure that we're paying attention to what other people are doing. And just make one comment about, rectangular activities that have taken place over at Spanish River. I think we've been very fortunate that the leagues and the rec programs that use our facilities do pay attention to CDC guidelines, and we've had very little interruption to recreational play in our community on the open space areas. And I'm looking forward to the time where we can reopen the field house at Sugar Sand to both pickleball and other interested activities.
Thank you. We touched on the RFP for the auditor. That will be a future agenda item. Apparently, every 5 years, we have to go out for an RFP. We've had GROW for many years, and there's nothing to say that they won't continue, but we do have to go through the process and keep everything transparent and above board. And other than that, I will see you on Monday. I think that it's time for Mr. Engel to do his thing.
By all means, move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Joanne, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Have a good night,
Feel better,
thank you,
Aaron.
everybody.